Hi friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. I am so impressed with my reading this month. I read 28 books. Can you believe that? After my huge June book haul, when I hauled over 30 books, I really wanted to push through a lot of my physical TBR, and I'm so impressed. I did read 28 books, but those consisted of 12 novels, 5 comics / graphic novels, and 11 poetry collections. Oh, and did I mention I crushed my Goodreads goal? Also already shared my Booktubeathon wrap up separately, so I will have that linked for you down in the description box because that's the latter half of the month, everything that I read, and there's quite a few books in there and poetry. There's one poetry collection and a couple of graphic novels and comics, so if you're interested in my thoughts on those individual books, I will have that linked for you in the description box, but I'm going to jump into the ones that I haven't talked to you about yet. My Lady and Other Random Thoughts by Max Smith. I already have a full review of this on my channel, and I loved this so much. It was so good. It was so unexpected. It's not even like available to rate or talk about on Goodreads. But yeah, I did do a full review. I will have that linked for you if you're interested in watching that. I read Bright Minds, Empty Souls by Janine Cecilia, and I really did enjoy this one. I ended up rating it 4 stars. I really loved the simplicity of this poetry collection. However, there were a few errors and I didn't enjoy those. So it probably would have gotten 5 stars had there not been any errors. Then I picked up another poetry collection, Hummingbird by Sophia Lane Hansen. Also really enjoyed this one, and I'm being super picky and rating it 4 stars. I absolutely adored part 1 with every fiber of my being, and the rest was great as well. The only reason I'm taking off a star is if you are going to include illustrations, I'm going to use that as part of my rating to see if those fit, if they added anything, and unfortunately I just didn't like the illustrations. I'm not saying that they weren't good, I'm just saying that to me they didn't really relate to the poems, so I took off a star for that. Next up, I read 2 collections by Tyler Knott Gregson, and this is like a really popular Bookstagrammable poet, and he is on Bookstagram, and I bought this one for myself, and then this is the one that I hauled last month. It was the one that I unwrapped because it was like a date with a book type thing. So I will say that I loved the format. The format is really cool. It's like a multimedia, especially here in the first one. It's like typed on pages. There's some blackout poetry. There's some photography and so forth. But the poems themselves are not that good. I mean, at all. Some of them don't make sense. Some of them he seems kind of whiny. Let's see, I tagged 1 poem out of this whole collection, but overall I was severely let down by this poet. Then I did read his haikus on love, and I do have this signed copy. I will keep these in my collection just because I am like kind of collecting my poetry. This one was written, and I get some of it was typed, but you know, it was written as well, and it also had some photography and stuff like that in it. Again, I was just severely let down. I rated Chasers of Light, Poems from the Typewriter series 2 stars, and I rated the Haikus on Love 3 stars. I really think that this is more about the aesthetic of the poetry rather than the actual words of the poetry. Then I read Cold Summer by Gwen Cole. I've talked about this book a couple of times on my channel already. I rated it 5 stars. It is a 2017 debut novel. I hope that I have the chance to meet Gwen Cole very soon, if not like in the future sometime. Cale is a time traveler, and of course Harper doesn't know. Barely anybody knows, and the people that do know either don't believe him or they're kind of keeping it secret. And Harper's trying to ground Cale and keep him in the present. And I jumped into a couple of arcs, which I will have reviews for closer to release date. I read Genuine Fraud. I did like this one, and I was wavering for the longest time back and forth between 3 and 4 stars. This one is written by E. Lockhart. What I liked about it is that I love the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley. Love that movie. It's one of, like, in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And this was very, very, very similar to that. The more reviews you read about it, I'm sure they'll pick out like specific things, but it's been a while since I've seen the movie. But basically this is a gender bent, told in reverse, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Our main character in here, Jewel, is a liar. You know that right from the beginning. You're starting to read and you're like, what's going on? And then it's just told in reverse about her and her friend Imogen and how they met and why they had this great friendship, and you're trying to figure out what Jewel is lying about, what's true, what's fantasy. It's just kind of like one of those hard books to describe, because if you know The Talented Mr. Ripley, telling you it's very similar. It's very similar. But I did like it. I rated it 3 stars and almost 4 stars, but I took off like another star because it is so similar. But yes, there will be a review posted closer to release date. And I read There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. Now this one blew me away. Like, definitely pick up this. I can't believe this is from the same author that wrote The Anna and the French Kiss companion trilogy. I loved those. I really did, because you know I love contemporary. But this is like a suspense thriller, and I was scared. Like, there's some gruesome stuff that goes down in here, the way things are described. People are dying. There's a murder on the loose. There were a few insensitivities in here. It was just a couple of things that I marked. But overall, like, I was reading this at night, and either my husband would not be here or he was already asleep, and I would be reading it and I'd be like, oh my gosh, and I would like hear every noise in the house at night. So this one, I wouldn't say overall it's like a scary book, but when there's like someone in your house and like you can feel it, like you know what's about to happen, but you don't know how it's gonna happen, and you're just like on edge, and it's so gruesome, and you're just like, oh my gosh. I don't know, this was a really good one. I definitely want to pick up like a finished copy and stuff and see if the insensitive things were changed or altered in any way. Yeah, I highly recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars, and I only took off because of those like insensitive things, and the ending was a little, I don't know. The ending wasn't as satisfying as like the rest of the book. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't as great as the rest of the book. Beautiful Broken Girls by Kim Savage. Finally got around to reading this. I tried so many times to pick it up and read it, and I'm so glad that I finally like pushed through and conquered this book. I ended up rating this one 4 stars. I think it's very atmospheric. I think it's very Virgin Suicide-esque. If you've ever seen that movie or read the book, I've only seen the movie. I do plan to read the book one day though. But yeah, this one is just very atmospheric. 2 sisters kill themselves in a local quarry, and the main character in this one receives a letter, and then he's kind of sent on this journey to find these letters. I do have a full review coming of this one, so look out for that. But yeah, I really did enjoy this, and I'm really loving Kim Savage as an author. This is her 2nd book. And I picked up Lacebone Beast by N.L. Champol. I heard about this. I was recommended this poetry collection by another booktuber, and they absolutely loved this. They rated it 5 stars, and after I read it, I mean, I picked it up solely for that reason. I mean, the cover's beautiful, yes, but I picked it up solely on the recommendation, and I was so let down by this. 5 poems out of this collection that were decent. I liked them. I'll read them again. But then I tabbed all of these up here that I don't even know if you can call it poetry. I do have a full review coming of this poetry collection, so I will save my thoughts for that video. But yeah, I was really let down by this one, and I rated it 2 stars. I received Words on Bathroom Walls by Julia Walton in my uppercase subscription box, and it was the perfect time to pick it up and read it. I do plan to do a review of this soon because I really did enjoy it. Our main character, Adam, is schizophrenic, and he's on this experimental drug trial for this certain medication to help with his schizophrenia, and we see his doses increased and reduced. And he does meet this one girl that's just fiercely intelligent, totally beautiful, and he's trying to keep the fact that he's schizophrenic from her, but as things spiral out of control, he's trying to still like kind of protect himself and her from, as he says, he's crazy. And I finally read The Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace. Guys, this one is so good. Blew me away. Loved every second of it. If you will notice, I usually tab my poetry and I did not put one single tab in this. Why? Because this is a 5-star poetry collection, you guys. This is poetry done right. Every single poem in here would have been tabbed. Every single one. Everything was intentional. I understood what the poet was trying to say. It was lyrical and beautiful and magical and just like reached into your soul. This one was so great. This is definitely going to be on my poetry recommendation list that I am going to be posting soon. I picked up The Chaos of Longing, a poetry collection by K.Y. Robinson. This one is super graphic. I will say just from reading this collection that the poet has been through some shit, you guys. I wrote here on Goodreads that these poems are graphic and raw, yet so honest. So I think that's what I liked about it, is that it was just so kind of in your face and it just lays it out on the line for you. So I rated this poetry collection 3 stars. Then I picked up Of Yesteryear by Lauren Eden. I really liked this one. My true rating is probably 3.5 stars, but of course on Goodreads there's no half-star ratings, so I picked 3 stars. I love the cover of this, and I love that the poems inside mirror that star. There's lots of star themed poems in here, so I felt that the cover really fit, and that's something that I usually take off like in other poetry collections, like if the illustrations don't match what's on the inside, and this one really did, so thumbs up for that. Also, I thought it was a super like cohesive collection, and that's something else that is really important in a poetry collection to me. If the poems are just kind of all over the place or not like broken up into parts or sections or whatever you want to call them, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't flow. It doesn't feel good. This feels like a book, you know? It flows. It's all like themed, and it looks like a fashion line, you know, like the spring line of, you know, whatever brand. And it's just, I really enjoyed that about it. It is a true testament of love, both real, imagined, and wished for. And the last book that I'm going to talk to you about in this wrap up is another poetry collection, Memories by Lang Leave, or there's a different pronunciation. I've always said leave, but I guess I'm saying that wrong. But okay, so I read this, and this is the second poetry collection I've read by her, and I don't think I'm going to be picking up anything else from her, which is completely sad and disheartening because her poetry collections are so pretty. This one is the hardcover version with the cloth bound spine, and the end papers are gorgeous. She's a wonderful illustrator. I love her illustrations that were in here. But there's something about her poems that just leave me feeling a little bit hollow after reading them. Like, I felt like it was wasted time. I felt that I could have been reading something else. I don't really get anything out of her poetry. It doesn't grip me in any way. I rated this collection 2 stars. I think that's being a little generous. I don't think that her collections are cohesive in any way. I don't understand the point that she's trying to make ever. I don't follow her symbolism. I don't like the spacing or the choppiness of her poetry. And in this particular poetry, it was kind of a cop-out because some of these poems were taken from her other collections. That wraps up my July reading month. It was the most excellent reading month ever. I'm really happy that I powered through all those books. Don't forget to check out my Booktubeathon wrap up if you're interested in my thoughts and the rest of the books that I read this month. But that's all for today's video. Please let me know what your favorite book is that you read this month. Did you rate anything 5 stars? I had a couple of 5 stars and high ratings, 5 and 4 and 5 stars. So I think that was a pretty good reading month overall. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!